We
They
are
just get
live.
choked.
Was yesterday Monday?
Yeah.
Yes.
What a long week this is.
Dude, it was a long weekend, too.
Yeah.
Take it.
We'll take
This
it.
year's
Hello, everybody.
Giolito Sports Talk.
We had some nice upsets this weekend. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, we did.
Old Oklahoma took an L.
Spencer Rattler.
Spencer Rattler.
The problem with the, Rattler looks very young. Honestly, Kansas State, I feel like, is quietly on the way up. Did y'all know Chris? I saw this the day after the game. Chris Kleeman, the head coach at Kansas State, he came over from North Dakota State. He's been there a few years now, and he's done a pretty good job, I guess. Succeeding Bill Snyder. But it was his birthday the day they beat Oklahoma.
Really?
I thought that was pretty cool. It was like his
Also-
55th birthday.
Yeah, that
I
is
also have
pretty
an
cool.
interesting fact I heard. Kansas State is 0-2 in their last two games against FCS opponents, but they're 2-0 in their last two games against Oklahoma.
Wow.
I think it's safe to say they are Oklahoma's
And they
daddy
came
right now.
back too.
Yeah,
They came
Oklahoma
back
was
from
up-
like they were down
up by
like 30.
21.
Yeah, they were down by like 21. That was crazy.
Yeah.
And they beat
Deuce-
Oklahoma last year too.
Deuce Vaughn is a freshman running back they have. He is one of the best running backs in college football, period. Just performance level. He even played good in the loss against Arkansas State. He's really, really good. I like this kid a lot. Really short, speedy dude. Very agile.
I just can't believe they beat him at their own turf. Like everybody's like, "Oh, Spencer Rattler's the dude," and then he just chokes. He just totally throws it in a complete, misses a wide open wide receiver to end the game. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
I wasn't even too hyped about watching the game. I didn't watch much of it until the third
Yeah,
quarter.
I didn't
was
watch
watching
much of it either.
I was watching the Florida game, watching the other games.
Florida, that Kyle Pitts, that dude is a monster.
Easily the best tight end in college football. I don't
I
think
think
it's
he's
close.
better. I think he's better than that Pat Freiermuth guy from Penn State.
Yeah, Pat Freiermuth, and a lot of people like him, and the reason they like him so much is because he's such a red zone threat. I think that's the only thing that he really does maybe better than any other tight end in college football.
I mean, I saw that Kyle was supposed to get. He's on pace for like 40 TDs for this season alone. I thought it was crazy.
Because he had 4, so that's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
I mean, dude's a monster. He had that long one where he stiff armed that guy, stiff armed the DB. That was crazy. Kyle
Um,
Trask played well.
I
Trevor
think,
Lawrence had a little bye week.
Well, I think there's an elephant in the room, and we're going to have to look at it.
What's
Is that South Carolina Gamecocks losing?
I think that is.
I think it is, yeah.
I have been a South Carolina fan for probably 10-plus years now, and it hurts to say that after that game I was just numb. I
Oh,
was
really?
numb. I laid in my bed and I stared at the wall for a couple hours.
How do you feel about this guy right here?
Well, I feel like Marvin's Room really hits
Do
on
you like this
repeat.
guy?
Henry Tuoto'oto.
Do you like this guy?
Oh,
Caleb?
he's an All-American
Caleb, do you
more
like
than
this guy?
likely.
I think he's sus.
He is incredible.
Oh,
bro.
Henry
He's so
To'oto.
good.
I love his last name, To'oto.
Yeah,
I've always, that's more difficult to say than Tagovailoa or
It is, or Uyunglele.
Uigalele. I don't think it is.
I mean, that freaking pick six he had, crazy.
I thought he'd probably be an All-American by the end of the season before the season even
Yeah,
started.
he's a
'cause-
butt kiss award final. Well, like he's
Yep.
like I think what is it? It's not like it's like a preseason selection.
Yeah, the Buckus.
Yeah, he's like
Watch.
not really like he's on the watch list,
He's good.
as he should be.
He's one of the best in the country. He's great. Tennessee, the thing with them is they always have a very high ceiling. I know we love to make fun of Tennessee. I love to make fun of Tennessee. But they always have a very high ceiling with the way they recruit and the talent that they have on their roster every year. I mean, this year's no different.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, honestly, if they beat Georgia this year, because I mean, we saw how atrocious Georgia looked.
That first half was terrible.
Carolina's going to beat
particularly-
Georgia.
I mean, y'all. I guess that's not ridiculous because y'all just did. But
Hey, Brandon,
Wow.
what happened to LSU?
Oh.
Wow.
He's like,
it's okay.
No comment.
Wasn't as bad as the USC game.
As a Clemson fan, we've been there.
I hate to disagree, buddy boy.
I think Mississippi State KJ Costello put a L on y'all's face.
Mike Leach came in there and jacked y'all up.
I mean, how do you? I mean, this dude threw 600 passing yards in the SEC.
623, however many
I mean,
touchdowns.
good
Here's a
Lord.
conversation. I'd love that. Here's some insight for you guys. On Saturday, I was watching the LSU Mississippi State game, obviously, because it was a great game. And I watched the entire game. That was the game I watched.
Mhm.
The 3:30 slate. And my friends, some of my friends, we were texting back and forth, and all my friends were like convinced that KJ Costello was not playing good, or he wasn't even that good, or he wasn't making any big time throws. And I was just like, "Are you serious? Like, this dude not only just carved up a top 10 or 15 defense in college football.
Oh yeah, top 10.
I mean, just absolutely shredded them.
I mean,
I don't know what more
Derek
you can
Stingley
do.
did not play. I know that because he of an illness, non-COVID related. But
That's true.
I
think
mean,
they
you're you're the LSU Tigers, and you got to come out. I know it's your first game back, and usually you play FCS opponents in your first game for a little warm up. But I mean, it's just I don't see how you're the defending champions and you get beat week 1 off the bat to a Mississippi State team.
I think a lot of people this week specifically, the past couple weeks are kind of, I don't want to call them fake, but I don't think people understand what losing spring ball and summer ball does to you.
Oh,
Oh
absolutely.
yeah,
I mean,
that's
just specifically, to your body. When you're taking licks like that, and then you just stop taking licks, it becomes hard to absorb contact for months on end when you're just kind of hanging out. So, and also, you could see the mental errors in every single game.
That's true.
A mental error cost South Carolina an opportunity to win the game.
Yeah.
And that's, and also something that's also kind of been popping out to me has been special teams for a lot of games. All the special teams have been sloppy as could be. I mean, you got field goal kickers. You got kickers who are missing field goals that they make 10 times out of 10 like that. No problem. They're automatic. And they're missing them badly, wide left, wide right. So I think that'll continue to
Bobby
prove.
Bowden just shivered.
Tackling is a big factor.
Yeah,
My older
tackling.
college football fans got that joke.
I
To
mean-
add to your point, though, Caleb, he's definitely right. Obviously, not having spring training and all of this stuff is hard because, and we particularly noticed this in the NFL level. And sure, you can make the case that all these guys in the NFL are older and their bodies are more deteriorated, and that's fine. But I mean, so many stars in the NFL and some in college have been getting injured left and right, and I don't think it's a coincidence because people take the field again. They like everybody throughout April, May, June, July, kind of just sitting and waiting for something to happen, waiting for a decision to be made in a season. And when August comes around, you're like, okay, this is the first time I've taken the field.
we're back.
I've taken the field in 4 months, and these guys just aren't in shape. Most of them, some are, they're not nearly as in shape as they would be, and so I don't think it's much of a coincidence that so many people are getting hurt. And then also to add to Caleb's other point, special teams errors and stuff, and whether it's special teams or just mentally disciplined penalties, such as all these teams like LSU and really top tier teams are being penalized a lot, and it's it is largely due to not having spring and summer training, sure. But if you look at a team like Clemson, for example, you look at Clemson. We know Clemson is the best team in the country. Clemson,
Easily.
but they're not getting penalized for this stuff. It's just sheer coaching. It's just coaching. It's discipline. And Clemson's only played 2 games, yes, but they're very lightly penalized compared to other teams. You just don't see it. Special teams looks nearly flawless for Clemson. So it's just, it's not all having spring and summer training, but that obviously Caleb is dead on as well. That's a vital part. But at the end of the day, it also just comes down to coaching.
Trevor Lawrence is he's playing his best ball he's probably ever played since he's been at Clemson.
He's throwing 45 yard BBs down the field.
He is throwing dots out there on the field.
Absolutely.
And well, in that front, I think you can't really come at quarterbacks for that aspect because you got to look at the quarterback position completely different from, let's say, a right tackle.
In a lot of ways, that's true.
If you're a right tackle and, for example, you just can't move as well because you haven't been doing anything.
Yeah.
And, there's so many factors. Let's also back it up as you don't have as much recovery time. You guys had, for example, just for the SEC, they had 41 days from when the SEC approved the start of fall camp to the first game, 25 practices in 41 days.
Right.
That would destroy your body. And that, on top of that, that's without workouts. Those are full padded practices and add workouts on top of it. So, these guys are beat up. I mean, they're beat up because they've been just beating the crap out of each other for the past month.
After coming off a 3 or 4 month period of not doing that.
And, you can go and you can train, but you can go make some throws. You can go out to the Y and throw some balls and work on your arm. You can't go out to the Y and work on your pass
Work
blocking.
on your pulls.
Yeah, or your run blocking, or beating a tackle off the edge. There's no way to simulate that except for doing it. That's the only way, is to just go out and hit. And I think as the season progresses, you'll begin to see more and more teams kind of get back to where they're supposed to be. So hopefully that'll be soon. For example, but also when it does come down to coaching, Alabama didn't look sloppy at all. I mean, they look perfect, but there's some aspects is really weird to me as well. Look at these states who kind of opened up early as well. Alabama got to practice a little earlier than South Carolina and Louisiana.
Georgia's been playing ball since probably like a month.
Georgia is one of the country's leaders for sure.
Yeah, Georgia got they opened their football.
I mean, God, like the first week of school, I think.
Yeah, they opened their football like 2 or 3 weeks before South Carolina. So just think that's 2 or 3 more weeks you can go get some work in with your teammates. So I mean that's another thing to look at and a strength factor. So.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Well, we got sticking to college football. We got a good slate of games this weekend. The 2 biggest games are in the SEC, however. We'll start with the biggest one. Number 7 Auburn at number 4 Georgia. That'll be a 7:30 game on ESPN.
I think Auburn takes it. I really do. I like Auburn.
JT Daniels' first start this weekend.
That's true.
Yeah, he's expected to. He was cleared yesterday.
Taking the rust off.
I agree with you, John. I think Auburn wins, and I had to think about it a long time because, I mean, obviously I think, for starters, Georgia is much deeper than anybody in the country, and they're deeper than Auburn. They have much more depth.
Oh, my. The 5 stars they bring in is crazy.
I mean, yeah, they got the number 1 overall cornerback, Keely Ringo, starting. I mean, he's a freshman now. He's starting. You got Nolan Smith, who appears to be starting. He was the number 1 overall outside linebacker a couple of years ago. He's a sophomore now. I mean, you got loaded recruits on both sides of the ball everywhere. And so Georgia's deeper, but I think at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, I think it'll be a close game more than likely. I mean, it's 2 really good teams.
Just coaching.
It is coaching, and I think that most people in their right minds would say they would rather have Gus Malzahn as a head coach than Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart has had a tendency to micromanage his quarterbacks. We've seen him do that with Jake Fromm. We've seen him do that with Jacob Eason, and he didn't let Justin Fields play, and that wasn't on Jim Chaney. That was on Kirby Smart because Jim Chaney doesn't make a lot of the play calls. Or he didn't. He's at Tennessee now. But, yeah, I mean, it's at the end of the day, Gus Malzahn has got a guy in Bo Nix who, honestly, I don't think Bo Nix had a phenomenal year last year, and partially that's because he's a freshman. So we won't hate on Bo Nix. He's got a lot of talent. He'll end up being a good quarterback more than likely. But, I mean, you got a guy in Bo Nix who understands his offense. And JT Daniels
he hadn't played in a year, I think. I mean,
yeah, he did.
Torn ACL. I mean, he's got to break that rust off. I mean,
Right.
I could be wrong. I could. But, I mean, it's hard for a quarterback to come out and after a torn ACL and just absolutely destroy a top 10 opponent.
Well, right, and the only guy that gets the only quarterback that gets Georgia's offense right now that might play Saturday is Stetson Bennett, who has been around a long time. And I mean, no reason to hate Stetson Bennett, but he's been a second and third string quarterback like his whole career in college. And so, I mean, he has very, very little experience, even if he does have the only grasp of the Georgia offense that any of the quarterbacks do. And, I mean, you got Bo Nix, who has got Gus Malzahn working with him. And I think if it's a close game, Gus Malzahn's going to be able to make some big play calls that I just don't think Kirby Smart's going to be able to make it. And he's got a quarterback. And, I mean, Sal Williams, the receiver, he's both teams have
Seth
one.
Williams.
Yeah, Sal Williams on Auburn and then George Pickens on Georgia. Both teams have like that one
Seth
star
Williams
receiver.
Is a dog.
Yeah.
Hey,
That
I'm going
huge
to
catch
stop
last
you
week.
right there. Shout out to Funyuns, our sponsor for today. We all love Funyuns.
I came out of nowhere. Oh my gosh.
Love
We got
Funyuns.
some guys taking pictures in here. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
I mean, did y'all see Seth Williams' catch on that Kentucky cornerback?
That was
He
unbelievable.
he shoved him off of. He literally said, "Get off of me."
It just looked effortless. He just went up and got
And
it.
George
That was crazy.
Pickens, I think that George Pickens will not get the yards he deserves this year because of the quarterback change, and just like Georgia breaking into a new quarterback besides Jake Fromm for 3 years, it's going to be hard. But I think George Pickens is probably a top 5 receiver in college football, and I mean, or probably top 3.
Well, you know what I think's ironic is Georgia when JT Daniels transferred and Jamie Newman had opted in, they went in and they still had Stetson
Yeah.
Bennett, who was a capable starter, as their third string quarterback. They were on top of the world in terms of
Jamie Newman's a great quarterback.
they would have had Jamie Newman. His backup would have been JT Daniels, who's a bona fide starter, and then you have Stetson Bennett behind him, who's an average starter. So, I think it's kind of just ironic how things collapsed. They just fell apart in a matter of a month.
I mean, that DeJuan Mathis kid did not play like he was supposed to. I'll tell you
he's
that right
trash.
now.
And here's the deal: no Georgia quarterback looked that great against Arkansas, and Arkansas's not good. But the offensive line looked horrible. I mean,
Yeah.
they did not play well, and we know the offensive line stocked with even more.
I mean, they got seen. They got. I
high
mean,
talented
Georgia's always
recruits.
said it does help for. I mean, Arkansas's quarterback is Georgia's O-line coach from last year. So I mean, that probably plays a little bit of a toll, I would think. But I mean, it's
Essentially, that's very
it's
true.
Arkansas. They haven't been good since
It's
what?
inexcusable for a team like Georgia who wants to make the college football playoff. I mean,
I
to play
mean,
that
they
way.
just look so underwhelming in the first half. I mean, it was for the longest time, it was 7-5
I'm pretty sure Georgia was up
or 9-5.
I think it was 7-5 at halftime. I think you're right.
Baseball scores. Baseball.
I mean, hey, if Georgia wins every game like they did against Arkansas and looks ugly doing it, but they're still 11-0, I guess it would be if they won every game, including the SEC championship at the end of the season. Then, I mean, by all means, I mean they can make the playoff that way. But I mean, there's just
Yeah.
no way you do.
I
that
just
against
don't see
every
how
team.
you beat a team like
You're not doing
Florida
it
or
against
Ohio
Florida.
State.
You're not doing it against Florida. I can't remember if Georgia plays A&M, but they were scheduled to before.
Well, Georgia has a kind of they have 2 tough games. They got to go play, they got Auburn this week and then Tennessee next week. Who from watching in the South Carolina game, I will say, the athletes on Tennessee's football team begin to stand out eventually.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
they kind of, that was kind of like a big thing for me. Is I don't really feel like anybody got out coached in that game. I feel like somebody had to have more talent, and it just happened to be Tennessee.
How do you feel about Colin Hill? Did he play pretty good?
I don't, I want to say Colin Hill does have a strange swagger about him. Like, he kind of comes out. But you know what I think is great? He comes out like a fifth-year senior. And it was kind of refreshing to watch, honestly, to know when to take a sack and to know when not to take a sack and to know when to throw the ball away. And also, Colin Hill has had 2 ACL injuries and is still moving around, So, and I threw out a big question mark. Was the offensive line gonna be just horrible? And they look good. They made a change in the second half and took out I think it was Vershawn, if I'm not mistaken, at right tackle. And put Ja'Kai Moore at right tackle, and that ended up working. And on the back end, Muschamp's defense really stood out to me. They looked great.
Zach, he played tremendous.
Zach played great, actually.
Zach played
Zach
really
Pickens
good.
had a very good second half, particularly.
And you know who jumped off the stat, or he jumped out of the screen? Jordan Birch.
Yeah.
Jordan Birch looks like a grown man.
Yeah.
Jordan Birch his 19th
He's a
birthday.
man.
His 19th birthday was like a month ago.
Yeah.
Speaking of Jordan Burge, I actually, sorry to interrupt you, but I saw today that even though he played not a ton of snaps, he was like y'all's highest graded defensive player from per PPF.
Yeah, he was like one of the highest pressure grades this weekend per snap. I think he was like a 7 to 8 pressure grade. So like for 7 snaps he had 8, or for 8 snaps he had 7 pressures, something like that.
Yeah.
So I mean that's pretty impressive.
Somebody to look out for.
But yeah, him and Zach Pickens together look like a couple wrecking balls. And I do like having the D-line depth to where that was props to Muschamp in that aspect that, your guys are tired and you go toss 2 5-stars out there and say, hey, go get me a sack. And then they just do it, you know? That's a luxury to have. But, you know, that's pretty cool. But overall, I think one big point we learned is South Carolina knows who their number 1 wide receiver is. I think we knew that coming in. Shy Smith.
Thank the Lord.
Yeah, Shy Smith looked great. He wrestled for a lot of balls, you know, and his speed stood out like it always does. And, you know, they even managed to find a couple other targets. Nick Muse looked pretty good. And then on the back end, you know, losing Marshawn Lloyd was it was devastating. But the running backs didn't look like a slouch either. And it was running back by committee. I mean, 3 running backs got like 10-plus carries or something, or 5-plus carries. Zaquandre Wright, Kevin Harris, and Deshaun Fenwick all look really good. Deshaun Fenwick looks to be a great running back out of the backfield. And something I noticed about Zaquandre White was he's exactly what those Miami boys do. I mean, they're athletes, and they're going to come hit you in the mouth, and then they're going to talk to you after they get done trucking you. And they also, you know, just look undisciplined when they're running, but they move fast. So, I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, my personal thing is I don't, because Clemson and Miami play not this Saturday, next Saturday, and that'll be the primetime ABC game, right? Yeah.
Yep.
They announced that yesterday, I believe. I don't know, maybe 2 days ago.
Came out yesterday, I think.
Yeah. Well, I don't think Miami. Not only do I think Clemson wins that game, I don't think Miami has much of a chance, and here's why. Miami is probably the second best team in the ACC right now in terms of performance. I mean, they've looked great. They just tore Florida State to shreds. Now, Florida State's also probably the worst team in the ACC in terms of performance.
Beat Louisville.
Bad. They crushed Louisville. And we know Louisville's a good team, even if Malik Cunningham struggled. Although, prayers up to Malik Cunningham. He just got injured real badly, I think. But anyways, Miami is – De'Aaron King is a great quarterback. But here's the thing. Clemson's defensive line is much better than it was last year. Absolutely. I mean, it is every year, really.
Yeah.
But they return everybody they had last year.
Freshman
Xavier,
phenoms.
hopefully Xavier Thomas
comes back.
For Clemson's sake, hopefully Xavier Thomas comes back and is clear to play. But I mean, De'Aaron King's not going to be able to run around outside the pocket and make plays. If he wants to get out of the pocket, he better have a plan before he does it, because he's not going to be able to make plays and make reads outside of the pocket.
Yep.
And I mean, if he can, I mean, I'm wrong. I'll eat my words. And also, the only receiver that should probably be any sort of threat to Clemson's defensive backs is Brevin Jordan, the tight end, who is
We're
probably
going to double him, probably. Double.
I mean, and here's the thing: Clemson's defensive backs are very young. This is where Miami has a chance to exploit Clemson, if anywhere. It is Clemson's defensive backs, with guys like just really young guys like Andrew Booth, and I mean, we got a lot of talent because we recruit. I mean, Clemson recruits as well as anybody. Andrew Booth, guys like that, and
Sheridan
Jones, and Kendrick, and all these guys. I mean, we didn't look particularly great against Wake Forest. I say we. I'm a Clemson fan, no bias, but I am a Clemson fan. But we did not look like a elite secondary against Wake Forest, despite crushing Wake Forest, which I mean Clemson did, and they look good. I mean,
it's a young core. I mean, we got the only starters we return is not really starters, but I mean besides Darion Kendrick, he's really the only cornerback starter, and then
we lose Terrell, we lose Tanner Muse. I mean, we lose all these guys.
We lost Kayvon Wallace.
That's right.
Nolan Turner he's a great veteran safety that has played lots of snaps. I mean, he's a great safety, but we have a young DBs, we have a young core.
But bottom line, I mean, the Clemson defense should take care of Miami. And I mean, we hadn't even got to offense. I mean, do we really think Trevor Lawrence and ETN and all these guys are going to get stopped? I mean, do we really think Miami's defensive line is one of the best in the country as well? These are two of the best defensive lines in the country, maybe 2 of the top 5 defensive lines in the country. I mean, we'd have to go through and list them. But I mean, Jalen Peoples and all these guys from Miami, Roche. I mean, they're just loaded.
Didn't Gregory Rousseau, did he opt out?
And imagine if they had Gregory. You're right,
he
did. And imagine if they had him. I mean, they'd be ridiculous. And I mean, they're still really good. I mean, they're not stopping Clemson's offense. I don't think anyone is. It's not a Miami thing. I don't think. Ohio State's defense is taking a big step down this year, more than likely. I mean, they lose everybody on defense. They lose most on offense, too. They get Olave and Fields back, but other than that, I mean, loses KJ Hill, I believe. But, I mean, I don't think that defensive line, Trevor's just making throws too quickly. He can make plays in and out of the pocket. I mean, he's going to throw balls right on the money the entire game. I mean, he might.
The only thing y'all got to be worried about, which y'all really don't even have to be worried about, is Alabama.
I think
That's
Alabama's more of a threat than Ohio State is. I really do.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
all.
I was gonna. Brandon, you want to finish?
Yeah, you go.
Okay. I was just gonna chip in. You know, I haven't been paying attention to Clemson that much. I haven't been able to catch a couple games this year.
Oh, yeah. Give us your
But
thoughts.
Yeah.
here's something I'm gonna say purely from a football standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
I think the way Manny Diaz is he still there?
He's the
Yeah.
head coach.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if he is still there. I think the best way Manny Diaz can do anything to stop Clemson is not with personnel, but with scheme.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, here's the thing. Rhett Lashie is the new offensive coordinator there, and obviously he's got a lot of praise over the past couple weeks.
And here's the biggest thing. So Miami definitely has a rollout package in their offense. I want that to be known. So this idea that Derek King won't be able to move around is not exactly true because there is a package for him to move around where they move him out and they bring the offensive line with him. So
well, right, but the defensive line still has the option to contain. I mean, we
yeah,
still
they
gotta
have the contain, but it's the idea. It's not as getting him outside. It's just giving him time. Because on the back end is that younger secondary. You're not going to have a lot of coverage sacks. It's just being Derek King is pretty smart.
You just got to put the ball in your best player's hands.
Exactly. So in that aspect, I think the only real chance Miami will be with scheme. Yeah, move Derek King around, move that D line around, a lot of stunts. Try to get to Trevor Lawrence, get him on his back.
which they can do. Their defensive line,
Yeah.
I think Clemson will take care of Miami, but their defensive line is very good. I didn't mean to undermine them. I mean, they're
Oh
very
yeah,
good.
but I'm not really undermining. But it's just the idea of, making it as hard as possible on Trevor Lawrence, and
Okay.
that is the whole idea when it comes down to scheme. Because yeah, sometimes you can win straight up with talent. If Alabama came down, they would have the argument that they could use talent to win the football game. But in this aspect, Clemson out talents Miami a lot.
They just got to smother
Absolutely.
the fire.
So a lot of times the way to beat talent when you're a less talented team, you come and you bring scheme. And one of my best examples of that is last year when Carolina went to Georgia. They were much, much, much less talented. But the
This
scheme
is a
drawn
great
up
example.
the scheme drawn up for that game was perfect. I mean, you hitting Georgia in the middle, hitting them over the top when they weren't expecting it. That is the formula to beat teams like that.
And I mean, Brandon being silly over here. And I mean, here's the thing, because that's a great example, the Georgia-Carolina game, because what Carolina did on defense is they made Jake Fromm throw the ball 50 to 60 times. And I mean, when he has to do that, when they have to rely on Jacob Fromm to throw the ball 60 times, I mean, things aren't going to end well. And I mean, sure, Rodrigo Blankenship missed 2 or 3 field goals, which also definitely cost them the game. I agree. But I mean, Carolina stays in that game because they make Jake Fromm throw the ball 60 times a game rather than trying to run the ball with Swift and all these monster running backs they have. And so, I mean, that cost them. And also, I mean, there are plenty. I mean, you can look at teams like Army and Navy and Air Force with their offensive scheme. I mean, you want to stop an offense, you don't give them the ball. So, I mean, that's what they do against teams like Oklahoma, and Army almost beat them last year. I mean, that stuff happens. So, I mean, Miami's definitely got a chance to beat Clemson. I just don't think it's very good. I think Clemson is, Clemson's on another level. I mean, it's just not close.
Yeah, and I think in the end the talent will win Clemson that football game. But, like I said, if I'm Miami and I'm going down there, I'm going to draw up a great game plan. If I'm Manny Diaz, I'm working on the game plan as soon as I get home from the game before. I mean, I'm already on it. I'm already looking, what can I do? What did Clemson do? And, on the back end, looking at Venables, make Derek King's life hard. And that'll kind of probably be a battle. I think that game can be won in the trenches. Will specifically be who has the better schemes, who has the better blocking schemes, who's smarter. Maybe every now and then, I think, a great game plan would be try and beat Clemson with a screen. If you make Clemson rush up the field and don't move Derek King and then have a running back protecting, do that a couple of times, just lull them to sleep.
just expose our weaknesses.
Yeah.
I mean, like speaking on the screen, I mean, I know we got talented freshmen, but they're so young and
Absolutely.
you could say innocent in college football that possibly don't even know that's coming. When a fifth-year senior is like, oh yeah, screen right there, like Ben Boulware.
He
Well,
did that. his
I
whole
mean,
life.
yeah, that's an idea though.
And
Is
that's
when,
kind of Jamie Skalski's
Skalski.
role. I mean, that might
Yeah.
have to be his role. But what were you saying?
well, I was just gonna say, when you have younger guys, you know how you beat them, you confuse them. You confuse them every
Oh.
time. Young guys do not know, especially this year. You got young guys who they only had 3 months to learn, 4 months to learn a playbook. You think you can't confuse them?
Caleb's right. I mean, disguise offensive looks. They particularly have to use that to find ways to get Brevin Jordan down the field. That's
Yeah.
the tight end. And so Caleb makes a great point there. Disguise a lot of looks. Guys like Andrew Booth and all these young guys that just haven't seen stuff like that.
I see a lot of opportunity. Miami. I could think of a game plan they could drop that could, help get them some points. Specifically, you could lay something out to the point to where you run a screen, you bring them back, let them rush up the field, and then you run a tight end screen to the right side, left side, go back. Then once you do that, you beat them over the top because the safeties are so worried about getting beat over the middle. Now you're getting beat over the top. I mean, there are many ways to beat young guys in that front. So if I'm Manny Diaz, that's what I'm doing. I'm gonna come try and I'm coming to trick. I'm coming to win. Just leave it all out there. Do what you got to do, and if you don't win, you weren't supposed to.
Pure X's and O's.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then no reason for Miami to feel like they can't go into Clemson and get a win because
Yeah.
they can. I mean, they should definitely be motivated. There's a lot of reason for the Miami fan base to be optimistic that they could win. I just totally opinionated statement, but I mean, I just don't think they will. I don't think they have much chance, but we'll
Yeah.
see. I'm excited for it. It'll be a fun game. 2 weeks, not this Saturday, next Saturday.
This Saturday they play the Virginia Cavaliers.
Virginia's not dead last in the in the ACC. I mean, they're ahead. I think I'd put them ahead of Florida State, Syracuse. Virginia's loses Bryce Perkins, but they're not bad, and they got a great coach, Brock Mendenhall.
Well, I think also just like some breaking news, not necessarily breaking, but this morning that I kind of want to jump into.
This.
So we have our first risk of losing the football season to COVID this morning, as Tennessee and Minnesota both had positive tests.
Oh,
So
Minnesota has them too.
I think they had like one, if I'm not mistaken, something like that.
I
But
saw they quarantined them.
yeah, they're quarantining. They're quarantining everyone on the team. And I know Tennessee had 5 total positive cases with personnel and players. So this will be our first time in the football, well, specifically the NFL. The college football season has, like, for example, North Carolina last week kind of getting shut down. But that's not as big of a deal because, it's really the NFL has to follow everyone else. There's protocols they have to follow. So, this is going to be the first risk of losing a portion of the NFL season because, now the Tennessee's game this weekend is in jeopardy, just off the rip, and then you could lose next week, and then you don't know what's going to happen. So, that's just something I wanted to talk about.
And me personally, I'm a Texans fan. So
Go
and
Pack, go.
we're scheduled. Yeah, we have struggled bad last 3 weeks for the Texans. But we are scheduled to play the Vikings this Sunday, which also is kind of sad because the Vikings haven't played that good. I mean, I
Nope,
was
we
expecting
clapped.
to beat them. Absolutely. Are you a Vikings fan?
No, I'm a Packers fan.
Oh, I was. Yeah. Oh, y'all rivals now, right? I mean,
Oh yeah, big rivals.
can't be a Vikings fan. Yeah, but I mean, I was kind of looking forward to getting our first win over the Vikings. But yeah, that affects other teams outside just the Vikings and Titans as well. So I mean, whoever the Titans were scheduled to play as well.
Yeah,
would
they-
probably
The
be
Steelers.
affected.
The Steelers. So now, that's
Ooh.
also kind of strange because now the Steelers lose their game too if
Mhm.
it weren't to happen. So I mean that's what's so strange about this. Like this whole aspect of the season is, you could have nothing to do with the game. Everyone could have been negative. You could have been at home. You could have been on a bye week, and now all of a sudden you're losing games because of that. So
I mean, we've seen teams in college particularly. I mean, teams not even test positive, and or players not even test positive, and they'd have to shut down because of contact tracing. For example, Houston and Baylor a couple Saturdays ago, they had to cancel the entire game, and not one person on either side tested positive for COVID-19. And I mean, I kind of hate that personally, but I mean, they had to shut it down. They couldn't play, and so it's pretty terrible that that's how it is. But it's a weird, very different season.
what are we at, Alex?
We're
30.
at 35 minutes.
What are you on?
I think Alex is about ready for us. He's telling us our time's up here, so